Joining me this week, I'm your host, Ryan McCarty. We talk about everything people, culture, engagement. So this week, I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to Champion Your Culture. What's up? We're back for another week, a really special week. I've got George here. Obviously, anytime George is on with me, it is a very cool week to be on Champion Your Culture. Thank you for joining us for the next 30 minutes. George, what's happening? Oh, you're muted, brother. You got
You like that? You like that?
Yeah.
Monday bloopers.
Monday.
Hey, yeah, I'm still stuck, man. I'm still stuck on the Monday bloopers and everything that I do. So, heart's still pumping behind me. I need to pump a little bit more inside. I need some coffee. I need
Oh,
what you got
look,
in the cup,
yeah.
man.
Well,
What
this
you got
is
in the
this
cup,
is
but everything's gonna
cup.
be good.
This is cup all the way to cup 3 right here in this one. So
Oh
yeah,
man,
get some coffee, man. Wake up. We got people on. They're
yeah.
going live. George is actually on right now. And if you want to talk to us, that's how we chat. So we have this 30 minutes where we talk about culture and people and engagement and how to recruit in ways that are meaningful, how to keep people, not in a way that just is like, let's retain them, but let's flourish people. Let's champion them. Let's champion culture and really create an opportunity for people to connect. And I'm excited about this topic today, George, because I keep over and over hearing about all types of different culture programs that are coming out of the pandemic, because I think people are recognizing like culture actually does matter, and it mattered before the pandemic, during, and after. But now it seems like programming and the type of culture engagement stuff is really becoming even more trendy than it was before the podcast. Are you seeing the same thing, man?
Yeah, I think it's it has everything to do with really what we've learned about ourselves, right? A lot of people learn a lot about themselves during the pandemic. There was a lot of isolation, a lot of time to really figure out who you were and discover new things about yourself. And whenever you find that time where people are given that time, and sometimes, we use the word permission a lot, because giving ourselves
Yeah.
permission, right? Giving ourselves permission to really identify who we truly are. And some of those things are exposed even in tough trials. I think a lot of who we are comes through the situations we face in life and how well we adapt and learn, and sometimes become defeated, right? Sometimes you learn more. I've always said I've learned more in my defeats and failures than I ever had in my success, because when you succeed, you're like clapping and you're moving on to the next thing. You don't go back and say, hey, I succeeded, but what could I have done better? What could I have done to make it easier, right? And so
Yeah.
I think when it comes to this culture, it's become a spotlight in the workplace.
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you said about just having that ability to shift, right? To adjust what we're doing and really evolve with how the world is evolving. And I think we have to be mindful as leaders in what you're talking about. And certainly wanted to mention at the beginning of this podcast, obviously, every week is brought to you by Culture of Good. We're excited to bring our process and solution into companies all across the country. We just had five champions that were certified, and they're going back into their companies and really wrestling with all of the same things that we're working toward. And that is, how do we create a culture where people want to come to work, where they love where they work, they love what they do, they love who they work for and with. Those are the type of things that we're addressing with the Culture of Good. So I wanted to thank Culture of Good, before we go any further, for their sponsorship of this podcast and every podcast moving forward. So, and I wanted to say, you were talking about just the evolution, or kind of like the adjustments. You used another word and I'm forgetting what it is. It's like agility, right? It's like the ability to move with the times, with the
Yeah.
season of where business is, where the world is. I think that's a really cool concept, man, that a
Yeah,
lot of leaders are realizing.
yeah, you're adapting. You're adapting. At the end of the day, adaptability really,
Adaptability is the greatest ability. That's it. Adaptability. That's
right?
the word. Yeah, man.
But think about it. When you're able to adapt, you're able to be available. And in a
Mm.
culture workplace, and we talk about it all the time. If I was to say, Ryan, what is culture? Your response is what? What is culture?
Oh, it's how most people feel, believe, and behave most of the time. So
Right.
it's
So,
not a perfect thing. It's most of the time, this is how
yeah,
most people feel, believe, and behave. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So there's
Easy.
consistencies there, but there's some adaptability, and you got to be available to those things. And really, when we talk about culture, we're saying culture is not what's on the outside. It's not on the walls. It's not the plaque. It's not the marketing
List
that a
of
company does.
values on the
Yeah.
wall,
Yeah, it's
that kind
none
of
of that
shit.
stuff.
Yeah.
The culture of your business is really internal, right? It's the DNA. It's what people have flow out of them based around what's around them, right? And so when you're able to adapt to situations, tough times, the culture really comes out when you're going through hell, right? Hell and high waters.
Mm.
What you believe and behave, right? Those things come out of you in all circumstances. And so I think that's why it's so important to really do a DNA check of your culture and then really figure out how do you embed it? How do you really get this deep down inside you to where it's not some lie, it's not some, oh, what do we need to do in this situation, right? It's just simply who we are. I don't have to think about the culture that I want to have because it's a lifestyle to me. And I believe you
Yeah.
either live in a lie or live in a lifestyle when it comes to those things.
Lifestyle, way different than programs. I love what you said on LinkedIn
Yeah.
about how do we go beyond like cultural programs to really living a lifestyle. I like it in terms of thinking about culture being the soul of your business, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, you got the heartbeat behind you. You know, those type of metaphors really work really well. Soul, heart, because ultimately, like the very foundation of a really strong, healthy culture is a ton of people caring about each other. You
Yeah.
know, because that's really what's going to motivate people to really embrace like more than just what you were talking about, like the values on the wall or just the plaque or like best places to work banner,
Right.
those type of things. Like that's all fine and good, but at the end of the day, like what kind of behavior am I seeing as an employee of the organization as well, not just like how do we as leaders ensure that each person on our team is living up to the values, but hell, does the company live up to the values? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like that's one of the things that we look at with the culture of good is we layer it in terms of like when we think about how do we embed culture rather than it being just a program, we have to look at it in terms of individual culture, how I see and live in my lifestyle and the way that I live in and among the culture personally, how my team does, right? So like those that I work with and my peers every single day or every week, those that I'm around, like do I see my team living the culture and then do I see the organization as a whole? And those are really the cool assessments that we embed in to make it more strategic because I mean ultimately at the end of the day there's all types of programs and ways you can go about culture work or culture change or whatever you want to call it, but at the end of the day it's like you said it's got to be the essence of who you are, not just what you do.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
So, when I think about that, and as we were talking, right before we hopped on, we don't spend a lot of time really going over what we talk from the heart and from experience
sure.
on these things. But I thought about, when it comes to anything that I do in regards to, building a thriving, culture, people first company, what does it look like? And I think at the root of all things, right? When I think about anything, I think about you and I. We go
Yeah,
back, too long, 30 years, right?
30.
Uh,
Yeah.
when I think about those type of things, it boils down to relationships. We just had a conversation here at S3 and our team yesterday, and our leadership is, how well do we know our people, and what are we doing to grow our people? What are we doing to make sure they not only feel connected, but they belong, but also that we truly love them? Like we don't just say that when we walk around, hey, I love you, but what does that really mean? What does that love mean to them? Is it just buying them lunch on Thursdays? But focus
Yeah.
on building relationships. I think at the root of everything, relationships got to be connected with that. And then from those relationships, any ship that's going to flow has to have a communication, right? You got to be able to
Yeah.
communicate effectively, and that has to be a priority, because even with that communication, as I always say, everybody communicates different. Some people are verbal communicators. Some people, especially when you're trying to do and change things,
Yep.
some people have to visually see what you're trying to say. And so, given those experiences, and then at the end of the day, really being relevant, and by being relevant, man, you got to stop acting like you're this pedestal of perfection, and just be human. I
Mhm.
love talking about my failures. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but I just want people to know that, hey, don't let the
you,
title
you,
fool you.
yeah, well, you don't want to
Don't let
build
the
up
title fool
everybody's
you.
expectations
Yeah.
because you know you're going to fail them. As long as
Yep.
you keep people's expectations really low, you're good.
Yep.
Like that's the feel.
Yeah.
I love this combo because really at the end of the day, like we have to know that at a very foundational level, like I was saying, and I agree with you, relationship is the beginning of any type of engagement. One of the things that I think is really a key point, and then we'll get into more of the DNA and like driving it into the business, not driving, because I don't want it to feel like it's forced, right? Because like culture can't be forced. It can't be something that happens to you. It happens for you and with you. Like it's a collective. And so we're not driving culture, we're not programming culture. We're really finding what makes us special and what is the soul of our business and amplifying that. Like build on why you care about the world, the things that matter to you, what you were talking about earlier, giving yourself permission as an organization to say, hey, we're profitable, let's be purposeful too. Like let's bring purpose into what we're doing. Let's create and craft something and really cultivate something that really matters. I like what you're saying. How do we know that we have a thriving culture? It's relationship, and the way that we know that is our people are thriving. So that's the question. Do you see people thriving at your workplace? Do you see them flourishing? Is that the kind of response that you get from people when you talk to them about their work experience? Is that the feedback that you're getting back, is that people are engaged, excited, growing, they feel like they're being developed, all of those things? Because if not, relationship is a good place to begin to cultivate that type of culture. And one of the ways to do that, I think, in a very practical way, is to notice and acknowledge the small stuff.
Yeah.
There's Because the small stuff matters to people. I was walking by an office this morning, and one of the great peers that I have, coworkers, that's in the finance department, his name's James. He had a piece of art in his office, and it was just sitting on the floor behind the door, but the doors are clear, so I could see it, and it's tile, and it's really got a cool kind of like design. And I was like, "Yo, that is a really cool piece of art. Thank you for bringing it and sharing it." And then he went on for like 10 minutes about why that matters to him. Now I
Yeah.
know so much more about him, but it wasn't about his work. It wasn't about getting hitting a KPI last month. It was about a piece of art. Find the small stuff that matters to people, because those are the things that might be small to you, but they're huge to him. And he talked to me about all kinds of stuff within his life. And I learned way more about James than just sitting down and saying, "Tell me about your life. Tell
Yeah.
me what you're passionate about." Acknowledge the small stuff, like find things that people care about and actually build relationship and talk about that stuff. So anyway, so we're talking about DNA, embedding it beyond a program. Many of you are on right now with us on LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitter or wherever you're at, and I want you to respond and reach out. Let's get some communication going. Tell us where you're at, what business you're with, promote, whatever you want to do. Ask questions as we get into this idea of what are some real practical steps and like very, um, I wouldn't say easy, but I would say simple ways of looking at this idea, because it's a complex idea, right? Or back to what you said, like cultures being how most people feel, believe, and behave. That feeling can be all over the place, you know. So
Yeah.
so we have to at some point begin to say, okay, here's what the strategy is, so that we know we're actually moving in the direction we want to move. So DNA, George, help me out. So in your concept of how to take it beyond beyond a program, right? You're talking about lifestyle. We were talking about the hereditary realities of DNA and how, like, there's certain things about myself that I look like my dad. There's, certain aspects of who I am and my personality and my essence. And, if you've ever been around certain people, they put off energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you get around one person and they don't have to say nothing. You don't have to, no behavior at all. They just put an energy off. And I think our businesses, our teams, us individually, we put an energy off. It's that DNA. It's something that's internal. It's embedded on the inside of us. But how do we go beyond a program? Because here's what I'm hearing a lot within the culture of good concept. And I want to share a video here in a moment of our recent champions. And if you're listening, you'll be able to hear their testimonials. It's just a few minutes, really good ideas around like taking this beyond a program and really having a plan. I think the plan makes it, every program has a plan, but how do you actually operationalize it, but keep the soul and the heart of it where it's not just another flavor of the month? I think people are tired of culture programs.
Yeah.
Myself, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I think I'm just tired of the word program. I don't think an organization, I don't think our world needs another program. I just really think we just have to become more genuine.
Mhm.
You know me as an acronym junkie. When we start talking about DNA, I was like,
I
man,
am too. Hey, we used to
when
be
it comes to
pastors, bro.
when it comes to that culture, man, it's when it comes to culture for me, how do we really get it in there, and what does that mean? And the first thing I thought of was, man, you got to define what it is, right? People
Define.
got to understand what it is. You got to nurture it and really take care of people by nurturing that culture that you want, and then really authentic. I can't even say it. Oh my goodness,
Authentic.
authentic. Oh my goodness. Blah 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 bananas. Authentic. You got to be really authentic through that lifestyle. And so those three words really stuck with me when I was coming out.
So
Real quick,
say them again. So
define what it is.
define what it
Yeah,
is.
because you got to be able to understand the lifestyle that you want to live. Right. I
Because
can
I
define
have
the lifestyle.
acronyms too, so we have different ones. So
Yeah.
yours is defined for D. Okay, so if you're out there, you're gonna get 2 for 1 here. All right. So
Ooh.
so this leads in because define is really important, and then mine is directional.
Mm.
My D is make sure that, and that goes along with yours. I love it. So it's really about, I remember a quote by Andy Stanley. He was a pastor at Northview, I think in Atlanta, or one of those big churches. He's got like 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Great leadership mind. But he talked about direction, not intention, determines destination. Direction, not
Mm.
intention, determines destination. There's a lot of leaders that intend to have a good culture. They want a good culture, but they don't have any direction. That's what I love about the culture of good. It's directional, and it's what you said. It defines it. And that's the thing. It's like, what is it? Define it. Give it direction. Define it. Give it direction. All right, that's a good one. N. What did you have for N?
Nurture.
Nurture. Yours is very. I love
People.
that. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think of it from when you look at it from a parent, right? We are there to do everything to protect, to grow, to provide good health conditions, right, and take care of the health. So all those the substance that are necessary for growth. What are we providing? So how do you create a good culture? What are you feeding it, right?
Mhm.
How are you keeping that culture healthy? And then in doing so, when you nurture it, you also have an eye for keeping away the things that could taint or could hurt the culture that you really want to live. And so taking care of what you have, I think it's that mindset that I want to be a good steward of the culture that I want to live as well.
Define, direction, nurture. Mine's different because I'm thinking of it as an organization as a whole, which still nurture, but
Yeah.
adding to it. Actually, not different, but adding to it. So we go from define, direction, nurture. Mine is an interesting one. Newsworthy.
Yeah. You know
One
what?
of the things.
This is
Yeah,
great
go
though,
ahead.
Ryan, not to cut you off, but to cut you off is that I think the mindset that we're looking at is I'm coming from and this is how you and I have connected so well. I go people uh, business, and I think we balance each other because from a company standpoint, I think what you're saying is perfect, right? From
Yeah.
a leadership level, I think these connect, and I think they're spot on. So, what are you talking about with the newsworthy?
Yeah, when we think about culture, we have to think of it as our internal culture. That would be those that work for us, those that even vendors, different things. It can be somewhat outside, but that's that internal culture. It's those that we're with more than not in terms of our work. And then we have the external culture. We have our clients, customers. That could also be vendors, our community. And when we think about something being newsworthy, what we're saying is, let's engage in ways that people want to share those experiences, because culture is such a shared experience. Well, give people a reason to share the experience, right?
Yeah.
What's newsworthy internally is like when somebody goes beyond their normal work and really puts in extra effort to drive the business to greater success. That's one of our things that we're looking for within the culture of good. You drive the business. Well, that's something that's newsworthy. So what I mean is, it doesn't have to go to the newspaper or the radio. Certainly we have those type of events and things that happen where people are talking about it, but what's also newsworthy internally, like what are those things that are happening internally within the culture that that really speak of the values and the mission and the vision of your organization, and then how are those stories being told? One of the things we talk about a lot is storytelling. Well, in order to tell stories, there has to be a story to talk about. And so how are you building stories and experiences that can be shared, and creating ways for people to share those? So doing things that are newsworthy, even if it's like I said, somebody going out of their way to work a little extra, or help someone, or maybe there's an employee that goes through a trying time, and they, their peers get around them and support them and encourage them, and provide whatever they need during that time. I think about in the past where we had employees that lost a house to fire, and lost everything that they had in their store, and other stores in their region all got together and took care of them. We didn't push that out to all the news channels, right? But the news
Mhm.
channels internally, like, we shared that people knew, okay, this is a kind of place that I want to be a part of, because they genuinely care about people. And that was shared throughout the entire company. And I would say this one is really important, specifically for employers that are spread out and decentralized. Before we get to point three, I want to show this video because I think it speaks to where we're headed. This is some of the testimonials from those that joined our last champion training. It's a 3-day training with Culture of Good. Our next one is October 5th through the 7th. Check this out.
Being immersed in this for the last few days has really opened my eyes, has made me more appreciative of the investment of my CEO in doing this, has made me appreciate the people that I got to meet, and has made me appreciate the people that I go back and get to share this with. It's allowing me to be vulnerable, and as an HR leader, that's not always something that's easy to do. Showing that it's okay to be human, and it's okay to be good and to do good in the world is a really big thing. And so I'm really excited to take this back and share it with my team.
And so now I'm going back home. I have 6 steps for the next 90 days that I'll be able to put into practice to really help a company that's rolling out their cultural values, but I'll really be able to help them now to have some tools to evaluate that and to really put those into practice. And that's, I think, what I was missing. I didn't really have the tools to go back to say, hey, here's how we take these values and put them into practice. So I just think it gives you some hands-on tools and some steps that you can take, kind of not plug and play, but it's a way to be able to go back home and say, I have a plan.
Yeah, so the experience was great, and I learned a lot of different aspects that I can take back to the business. in my new role of culture and leadership development, and how to develop teams and get everybody together for a common cause. It's a great program, and I learned a lot and met many new friends, and confidence that I can continue to lean on and get help and answers from in the future.
You know, in the past with the company, we thought we were on the right track of doing good. I mean, we did good in our community, but what we were missing was the culture of good. And what we've learned here, what I've learned here today, is that there's more than just a company handing out a check to somebody. I mean, that's grateful and people are appreciative of it, but you'll do a lot more by having everybody get involved in it. And you know, the old saying, many hands make light work, that's the kind of concept here. If we can get many hands that are involved in this thing, it will make it easier for everyone to participate on a more frequent basis and do more and build on what we have.
The Culture of Good training has given me the tools and resources to be able to revive our why and the reason why we go out and serve. So it's just given me a lot of opportunity to go back to my team and do more good.
All right. So that's, I mean, think about that. I think about Greg, Nicole, Dakota, Mark, and who else was a part of it? Oh, Mike. Yeah. With Wiley Metal and Marion. I mean, we're not talking about like, you know, culture professionals here. We're talking about everyday real leaders that are coming in from different companies that are learning this kind of stuff, the DNA stuff. So George, you know, October 5th through the 7th, you're going to be here, but that A, we got to get to the A. We only got a few minutes. We got D, we got N. What's the A to really drive it in and embed it? Authentic. You said it. Authentic.
Yeah, I said it right that time. Shout out to our good friend Joe Walsh over in Arizona for helping me see it so I can say it.
Thanks, Joe.
Before I go deep on this, I would love for everybody that's watching right now, like, share this video, get it out there, spread the news. If you feel like this content is value to you, we appreciate everybody, and we're honored that you've given us your time to really share our hearts and our thoughts on these topics, and really challenge you to truly champion your culture. So thank you for all who are watching. Again, like, share, and if you want any more information about our culture champions, you can go to the website and we can set up a discovery call. When I think about authenticity, that's the word I was really trying to stumble out from my mouth. Really, because I think in order to have a good culture, you got to be real, right?
Yeah.
And we're all different. We're black, white, brown, yellow, red, whatever you may be. But the reality is we're all in this world together. I think of it in this crazy analogy that I heard is that, you know, boiling water, the same boiling water that softens a potato that was once hard, hardens an egg on the inside, right? It's still the same atmosphere, but two different outcomes of that circumstances. And I think we all have different outcomes from the things, but when we are authentic in the lifestyle that we live, when we're talking about embedding a culture that is going to thrive, I believe being authentic, and that means being real, right? I'm not perfect. I'm a failure. I have successes, but we are all human with skin on. What's your A?
Well, I love that authentic because it's vulnerability too. It's like showing up fully as you, bringing your soul to work as a leader so that those on your team can do the same because they're going to emulate what you do. Remember, as a leader, people will embrace only what you embody. My A, authentic, was all. ALL. It's going to take all of us. Culture isn't a top-down approach. A top-down approach is programmed. So if you have a culture effort that's top down, that's a program. If you have a culture effort that's all, that's culture of good. That's a culture process. That's something that over time, because it's authentic, and everyone, all people, all your stakeholders, your employees, your customers, and your community. So I want to end with this. I think as leaders, if we're going to lead and not manage, we have to think about culture, because culture is the one thing that we can engage our employees, customers, and community all at the same. It's the only thing in business we can do this with. It's culture. So I think, yeah, all authentically, all everyone collectively, where we're all contributing, where we know how it benefits us and how it can make an impact in us, in our
Yeah.
workplace and in our world. So yeah, absolutely. And we're out of time.
Hey, we'll be back and better next time.
Hey, I mean, really, like, I really, what George said. Thank you. Share this, please. It stays evergreen. We're going to come back every week, whether you like it or not. We're going to be on here, and we'd love for you to join us October 5th through the 7th for our next training. We'll talk to you next week. I'm hoping that we'll be able to have Nicole with Stash Ventures. She doesn't even know that she's going to be on next week, but we'll see if we can get her on in a couple weeks and talk about the cannabis industry and how to champion people there. So pretty cool, man.
Champion your culture, baby.
All right.